Hey,
Thank you, fine.
it's been a while, hasn't it?
It's been quite a while, yeah, you can say that again.
Wonderful. So, what has led to this apparent change in the IND policy as far as verification of documents from Ghana are concerned? This is really totally for me out of the blue.
Well, it went gradually and well, more or less out of the blue because we don't understand why the immigration office is all of a sudden not so much skeptical as, well, plain right suspicious about documents from Ghana, and especially about documents that are when the birth registration is late, which means with a late entry, which means it is the first registration of the birth is done after 12 months after the child is born. This is officially called a late entry, and well, the past, well, say about a year and a half, the immigration office, they have, well, kind of figured out, I don't know how or why, because it's, well, according to Ghanaian law, it's not correct what they're thinking. But what is happening is that the immigration office says that when there is a late entry of the first registration of the birth, there is a risk, or there is a possibility that it's not the first entry, but that it's a second entry. And in Ghanaian law, you're not allowed to register a child more than once. You can register a child once, and a second registration is not valid, also not according to Ghanaian law.
Well, what do you mean by second registration? How can it? Where are they entering? Is it in the government's registrar of birth and death and what have you?
Yeah, it's
so how can they enter it twice? Is that possible?
Well, formally it's not possible, because what happens in Ghana is that when someone comes for a registration, they will be asked if there was a former registration or not, and then they will look in their archives to see if there was a registration before that time or not. So it is checked, but somehow the immigration office thinks that in Ghana everything is going the way they please, not according to rules. So it's kind of a, well, basic suspicion against Ghanaian documents all over again, because this is what you just said, really through the back door verification procedures that are coming into play again.
Wow. Well, this is quite troubling because it's going to upset some people's plans and things like that. Really, yeah, but what really triggered this suspicion? Can you give us some idea?
No, I don't know. We can all only guess, and it's like it's starting to get some kind of conspiracy theory where we think that there are too many people from Ghana wanted to reunite with their partners. Immigration office suspicious of whether everything is going by the books or not, so they're checking this, and especially they're checking it when you want to have your child come to the Netherlands. Well, you can do that until the child turns 18, so if your child is 17 and you feel like you really want to take this last chance to have the child reunited with the other parent, then, well, it's not so strange that people will start up a procedure in a very late stage. And it's also not so very strange that people in Ghana, they register their children in a late stage. Because if you have no need for a passport, no need for an official birth certificate, if you don't live in Accra or Kumasi where it's very easy to register your child, or if you just don't think about it,
you wouldn't bother to do it.
You don't bother to do it. It's not like in the Netherlands where you have a 3-day period wherein you have to go, and if you don't, then, well, there's huge problems. So it's a whole different culture, and the immigration office knows about it, but they tend, or they choose to ignore that, saying, well, these are the rules on paper, and this is what should happen. So if it's a late entry of the birth certificate, there's a real risk that there might have been a former
falsification or whatever. Okay, but then this is for what we're talking about. To me, it's like we're dealing with people who are younger, maybe up to maybe 18 years of age maximum. But what about those who are much older, who probably didn't get this kind of entries done for them? How is the IND treating their situation?
That's the funny thing, actually, because in our experience, they will only bother about the people whose birth certificate is very important, in a way that it's important to know whether a child is younger or older than 18. So if because what the immigration office does is they say, well, we think that there's something wrong with the birth certificate, so we do not believe that what is on this official paper from Ghana, it's a certified copy from the original birth certificate, we doubt the content of this birth certificate. And the doubt can be, well, just if they see any way for suspicion, they will put their doubt on that issue. So if it's a child is 17, they will tend to doubt that the child is 17. They say, well, the birth certificate, that might be wrong, might not be the right birth certificate. And then all of a sudden, people working at the embassy in the Dutch embassy are experts on telling age. So they will look at a child and say, well, we think it's this child is older than what he says he is. So we doubt it's really that. They say that they've had done some investigation. I don't know what, because we can never figure that out. And then they advise to do some further investigation because they doubt the age of the child. And that's really weird. So, and the reason why I'm very happy to be here today is because this problem is growing. And it's not only about like the date of birth of a child, but it's also about the question who the father of a child is. Mm-hmm. And then there's the next question, if there's the name of a father on the birth certificate, if this father has legal custody over the child or not. Mm-hmm. Because you can imagine that if there's a father who wants his child to come to the Netherlands, they will say that he will have to prove that he has legal custody. And then there's a lot of Ghanaian law again coming into play, because there are certain rules when the name of the father on the birth certificate also means that he has legal custody. And so that can be a fight as well. So the reason why I'm very happy to be here is that we want to warn all the people from Ghana that if you are starting a procedure where the documents that you are using from Ghana are important, that you make sure that everything on the birth certificate is okay before you have them legalized by the Dutch embassy. Because when you have the documents and when they're legalized by the Dutch embassy, then this is an official document. It will be documented at the embassy as well. They will know that you have legalized documents. If there's anything wrong, and there can be something wrong, if they make a mistake or if there's something that is a bit, well, might raise any questions, we want to make sure that the contents of the birth certificates are correct before you go to the embassy to legalize them.
Well, in making sure the contents of the documents are correct, who's going to do that second check? Because, I mean, if a parent, or two parents submit documents about the child birth certificate or whatever, I assume that they wouldn't, I mean, whatever information they are put on there, they want to make it public, supposedly official.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who then would want to contest that and say, okay, it's not, at what point can things go wrong for them to begin to disprove?
It can go wrong when it's a late entry. Then the immigration office has doubts to begin with the content of the birth certificate. Mm-hmm. And then they will ask for further proof for the content of the birth certificate. So they will ask for papers proving that the birth certificate, that is, or the date of birth, for instance, on the birth certificate, is the right birth certificate. Yes. So they will want to see things like weighing cards, baptism cards. If the child is a bit older, they will have to have some kind of exam which is registered at the WAEC, the WAEC.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is all very important information with which you can prove that the content of this birth certificate, late entry or not, is correct and is valid. Okay. So this is really very important, because this is really the immigration office, they are asking for these documents, well, practically always nowadays. Funny, because you can have a late entry in Nigeria as well. There are other countries where it's very common that a child is registered, by the time they will need some official papers. So it's very common in Africa and in other countries to have a late entry of a birth certificate. Yes. But the only country that they're making problems is Ghana. So it's very frustrating.
Really, what do they have about Ghana that's making a picking on Ghanaians at this
Very
point in
good
time?
question. I don't know.
There must be something more than that, or not?
I don't know. It's like they have some kind of further investigation into Ghanaian people,
Yeah.
because it's not only about the birth certificates of
Yeah.
children. It's also about what I said about the legal custody of a father over a child that can be an issue. But what they're doing as well is when there is a relationship between, or even a marriage between two Ghanaian people, or one person originally from Ghana but now with another nationality, they will do a really very thorough investigation whether this is a real marriage or a real relationship or not. Even with a marriage they're doing this. Well, you know, it would be funny if it wasn't so really a problem, because what the immigration office does is you file an application for an MVV so that your husband or wife can come to the Netherlands. Then they will have, unless you have a child together, because when there's a child together, somehow the immigration office understands that if there's a child born within the marriage, then there must be something between the parents. Well, they have some kind of knowledge of biology, I like to think. So that in those cases they will believe that there is a real marriage. But in a lot of other cases they will say, okay, well, you've had a relationship before, so is this the real thing, or is this fake marriage, fake relationship, with the only purpose to help someone getting papers in the Netherlands? So, and that's a fake marriage, that's a criminal offense and everything, so they will start investigating.
Yes.
That means that there will be sometimes a simultaneous interview with the person in Ghana and at the same time with the other person here in the Netherlands. You will be getting a load of questions for which you really should be prepared, because otherwise you tend to make a mistake. And when you make a mistake, they doubt whether you have a relationship or not. It even can get worse. We have a very recent case in which there was an interview. The immigration office says it's okay, we believe that there's a relationship, and now the embassy still refuses to give the MVV. We still don't know why, because they have some doubts again. Well, this is what is happening at this point.
It is
terrible.
Well, for lack of a right word, it's catastrophic.
Yeah.
Well, and it's really weird, because we have asked questions now at the immigration office, formal official questions, to ask them if this policy only goes for the Ghanaian people. They even have a person working with the immigration office permanently stationed at the embassy in Accra to do this investigation. So it's that serious.
Okay. Well, if you are Ghanaian listener, or you are a lover of Ghana, or you're married to Ghana, you have a relationship with a Ghanaian, whoever's listening out there, this has to do with you and me and all of us. If you have questions or comments about this topic, please give us a call on 020-737-1619. Lawyer Van Koosveld. Questionable, actually.
In my opinion.
Yes.
But what is also, to give you an example how weird it gets, when you register your child for the first time, when you really do it within the 21 days that you're supposed to register your child, what document will you bring? You will bring the weighing card.
Yes.
You will bring the weighing card from the hospital.
Yes.
With the weighing card, you will go to the registry of birth and death, and they will copy the information from the weighing card. That is a very important document.
Yes.
In a case I had where they doubted the date of birth of this child, the mother found somewhere in a bag, somewhere in the back of the house or a closet or whatever, found the weighing card of her son. So we could produce the weighing card. What did the immigration office say? Well, that's just a document, and we don't tend to value it the way you do, so it's not proof for us.
Wow.
And that is completely ridiculous. That's outrageous. It's like when there's a document for the Dutch government that is full-blown 100% proof, and then the Ghanaian government says, we don't trust that. So that's not good enough for us.
Wow.
So that means that there is also a complete lack of knowledge in the Netherlands. Well, not complete lack, but a serious lack of knowledge about these documents. And the most funny thing is that the immigration office then says, well, there is some piece of paper written by the Dutch embassy. Like it's an they call it an ambtsbericht.
Yeah.
So the Dutch embassy, or the people working with the embassy, or the Dutch people, they write something about Ghana, and then all of a sudden that is, well, that's holy. That's taken as the truth. Instead of going to the registry of birth and deaths and ask what is the law and what are the rules and regulations that you have to comply to give a certified copy of the birth certificate.
Okay.
So they will tend to say, well, the embassy says this, so we believe that, when it is, well, provable not true, because it's in violation with Ghanaian law, in violation with the Ghanaian rules and regulations.
Okay, I think this thing should be resolved. Well, first of all, I like usually when, let's say, the government issues, let's say, new currency notes, or let's say the Dutch government issues a new passport or what have you, you know, usually they make, they do some kind of publicity or whatever, with the samples so people can tell to the relevant organizations who make use of the documents, maybe at the ports of entry of Holland or other countries, European countries, for example, they know which is a genuine passport, a new one, a new document, so that people get to know this thing, so that they won't contradict themselves and do what is wrong.
Yeah.
So maybe the government of Ghana should arrange a workshop or a seminar whereby they can let the RND or the Dutch embassy, if they're sitting in Accra and yet they're not doing their job well, in as far as letting, knowing the proper document which are in circulation, then there should be a workshop or a seminar whereby the government of Ghana can come, the register of deaths and what have you, staff from there can come and show all the various types of documents which are used from the time the child is born to up to whatever level, so that these samples are clearly shown to them. Now, assuming that a change happens along the line, you should do the same thing, because to avoid this sort of controversies and arguments and doubts, then, you know, both sides to be able to work together, or at least if one party like the Dutch embassy is not really moving because they are in a castle of their own, then let the register of birth and death department make a move and say, hey guys, these are the documents we use, and so we've come to present them to you. These are the samples. This is how you know a genuine one. This is how you know a fake one. Here they are. You know, give them a little education if they're ignorant about the documents. What do you think?
Well, because it's not about whether it's a genuine document or not, because they know how what a document looks like.
Okay.
What they're saying is the person who made this document.
Yes.
He kind of made a mistake. Well, let's call it a mistake. So he put something in there. He was allowed to make up the document, so all the signatures and everything is genuine.
Yeah.
The document is genuine, but well, just like you explained with your birth certificate, there was made a mistake. There is something wrong on this document. The person who wrote it was allowed to make up the document, so the document in itself is correct. Just the content is.
In my case, the in between, there's something. No, they went to schools to check those things.
Yes.
That was where the schools made errors in entering dates.
But back then they checked everything, because there was a lot of, and they had reason to do it, because they had experienced that there were like 2 or 3 or 4 birth certificates circulating with all different information.
Yes.
And it is true that it is possible to get fake documents. That is true. But the thing is that the immigration office goes one step further, and now they say that when there's a late entry, that is enough reason to doubt the content of the birth certificate, because in their minds somehow the only reason to do a late entry is because you're not very happy with, you did a first entry way back when. You're not happy with the content because your child is actually over 18 and you want her to pretend that she's under 18 so she can get.
So that's where the suspicion is coming from.
That is the suspicion where the suspicion is coming from. Yeah.
That's where it's coming from.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then my question is the IND in this case not in contravention of, let's say, European law in the way they are handling these matters?
No, but they will turn it just in a way that because when there's documents presented and they have reason to doubt the contents, they are allowed to do further investigation. That has never changed.
Okay.
If you have like a birth certificate with someone on paper, he's 6 years old and he sits there with a beard and reading glasses, then you know there's something wrong. Or just to give you a very extreme example. So, and if they have a reason to doubt the content of the birth certificate, they are allowed to do further investigation. It's even different. They will only do a verification research if the doubt is not that much that they will dismiss the birth certificate altogether. So what the immigration office says is that we have doubts, and then you have to give us reason to start and to remove as much as the doubt, so that we will start an investigation about the content. That is what they're saying. Because also sometimes they even contest the fact if the mother is the mother of the child, so they will ask for DNA. Yeah.
Wow.
And then there's a mother on the birth certificate and with the child, and then they say, well, it's sometimes with an interview and a child says something strange, and then they say, oh, no, and then if they have no reason to doubt the date of birth because the child is like 12 or 13, so
yes,
because it's only when it matters when the child is 17, because if she's a few months older, she's 18, and they can refuse the staying permit. When the child is like 11 or 12, you will never see them doubting the date of birth, because, well, if it's a few months older, or then still she will be entitled to a staying permit.
Yeah.
And then they will, what you see is they will doubt another part of the birth certificate, and in that case they are doubting the fact whether the mother is the mother or not. And we went all the way to court, and the judge said that the immigration office was allowed to doubt, and that was due to something that the child said. Mind you, the child said, 12-year-old child who said something about herself, about her past. I don't know how she should know or whatever. And then they took that information they got from the child as being like the truth, and well, that was reason for them to doubt the content of the birth certificate. It's that suspicious nowadays.
Wow. So what do you think? Let's take this question and then we'll take a short break. What do you think is the cost, or what do you see as the impact in terms of costs and inconvenience of this situation to those who wish to join family members here in the Netherlands?
Well, the costs are when you go through the procedure and you get a negative decision from the immigration office, you will have to go to a lawyer to appeal. Depends on your income if you will get subsidized legal fee or not. Well, the costs of a procedure will be like about 200 euros. But that's not what you also have to do, is because you have to get additional proof from Ghana. So you have to go or have someone there who can
follow those things up for you.
Yeah, and see if he can find weighing cards. By the way, because it's nowadays because there's very important information. When you have a child and he has a registration number in school, you can quite easily get the WIAC information. If you have the WIAC information, then because the immigration office uses this information themselves to say that is important. So if you have WIAC information, then that is something that is well, very good. Nowadays you can get the WIAC information online. Okay. You can have scratch cards. So we've ordered people who went to Ghana to please bring some scratch cards so that we can do the WIAC check ourselves. Well, it's like a scratch, just like when you have a card for your phone, and then you scratch, and then there's a number, and you can put it into the internet, and you've paid for the card, and with that, then you get the number, and then you can get the registration information from the WIAC, so that we can help people check their identity. But so that it's very important that you know your registration number in school. But also, if you are planning on starting to let your children come to the Netherlands, make sure that you ask the family in Ghana to start searching for the additional evidence like the baptism cards, and the weighing cards and stuff like that, or information from school, when you went to school, and if the birth certificate of the child is on the school papers, and usually it's not. The name is on the school papers, but the date of birth usually not is on the elementary school. It says the name of the child, but not the date of birth. So, but make sure that you gather as much information so that if the immigration office doubts the birth certificate, that you can say, well, there's no reason to doubt, because there you go, I have all the information. Very, very, very important, because if you are planning on starting the procedure, make sure that the documents that you are presenting to the Dutch embassy, that you're very sure of the content, and have it, or maybe have it checked just to be sure, because if you have legalized documents and there's something wrong with them, then it's much more difficult to correct that than when you prepare that wrong.
Yeah, you have a question.
Yeah. So then, is it possible that the parents, when they give birth to a child, they will quickly go and legalize that document so that for life is legalized? So I think that have to be a very smart way to.
That's the best advice I can give. If you are still living in Ghana, but I don't know if this radio program is listened to in Ghana, but I would say spread the word.
Yeah.
Register your child within 21 days.
Yes.
But also make sure that you keep the weighing card, and ask for the original birth, the first entry of birth. Make sure that you remember when you had that first entry of birth, so that you can make sure that if you need a registered copy afterwards, that you can tell them when the first entry of birth was, and when this was within 21 days, or at least within 12 months of the birth, then, well, I'm pretty sure that the immigration office is not going to doubt immediately. Maybe they will try and find something else that is wrong with the birth certificate, probably, but still, then you have, at least you have that first hurdle is taken already. So that, and you know, a lot of times we ask our clients, was this the first time that you registered? And then they say, well, I don't remember, I don't know. And that is really something that is not going to be accepted here. So please do.
The first time they register, you ask them whether that's the first time they registered.
If this really was the first time they registered, or if there has been a prior registration.
But what I understand is, if they have the first registration and the second, wouldn't that be a duplication or conflict? I don't understand how it works.
But it is possible, because it is possible that, for instance, during the first registration, there has been made a mistake. Could be. That is possible in the Netherlands as well.
No, but in the registrar, let's say if it's the database or whatever, an archive, if you put somebody's name and date of birth and town and birth and all that, it should be just one unique record in there, or not?
That's correct.
So how can it be done the second time? And
it can be if there has been something wrong in the first registration.
So don't they delete
that's possible.
Wrong one?
And then and then you can also see it on the birth certificate, because there's a special and in the margin it will have a special code.
Yes.
That there has been a second entry, and that the second entry differs from the first one. But then they've checked why, because it can be that there has been some mistake in the name, or maybe that there is a name change, or it could be that the father who thought he was the father of the child turns out not to be the father.
Oh,
so that can be information that has to be changed.
Okay.
Just like in the Netherlands, you can.
But in Africa, these things are not this way. In Africa, we don't just go and the father goes to register, and then afterwards it's no more the father. So those things are not
no, it's
applicable.
not just like that. There will be, for instance, in a family gathering where it's determined that there's another father, or that there can be procedures also in the court to change the birth the birth information of the child.
Okay.
That is possible. So but then the most important thing is that the immigration office will still think that everything is done. You go to the registry of birth and death, and then you say, well, I want a birth certificate, and I don't know if it was before, but you'll just make a new one, it's okay. Just as if it goes like that, and that is not true. And but a lot of things are possible, because the immigration office says that a late entry is not possible. That's not true. A late entry is very well possible, and there are additional rules and regulations to get this late entry.
Okay.
So it's and that is something that the immigration office does not know. Well, we think so.
Okay.
It's complicated.
It's
I realize.
let's take a short break, and then we'll be back. If you are listening to this program and you have any question for us, give us a call, 0207371619. Lawyer Joyce Van Cuswell, the expert, is here. Fighting your cause as always. All of you from Ghana, she is your lady. Tell us, which are the documents really IND requires when it comes to attesting that certain documents are okay, which they require for legalization or for residence permit or whatever. What are the documents which people should be ready to provide, and to make sure that they avoid all the puzzles that are playing out right now?
It can be any kind of original documents where the name of the person is written correctly and the date of birth is written correctly, and more specifically, a weighing card is a very important thing. Baptism cards are very important, and proof of and school reports. But we've discussed during the break also that it's when you are a school teacher in elementary school and you write the reports where you see those nice report cards of the children.
Yeah.
Well, the issue is not to write the name of the child correctly. That's not so very important, and I can imagine. But it can be, what is important, if there has made any kind of mistake with that school report, by all means don't show it to the immigration office, because that will be reason for them to doubt everything. Because they would rather believe than the primary school teacher in doing a correct job than the person working at the registry of birth and deaths. And also with the WIAC, because if you have because that is something that the immigration office does research of themselves. I think on the embassy there's a stack of scratch cards, and if they have a registration number, they will do the WIAC check themselves. Okay. So that is something that with which you can and if all the information on those cards are the same as on the certified copy of the birth certificate, then that should be at least for us lawyers will be enough to tell the immigration office to stop hassling people about the identity of the person, because then there is enough proof.
But I realized, I never knew this, but this WIAC, checking the WIAC results with the scratch cards is really powerful, very nice. And I think that it would be nice for them, let's say, to look at the very beginning and maybe to the later life of the child, because if, let's say, there are some errors which can happen along the line between, like in my case, in some of the entries in the elementary schools. But what really proved the day was my baptismal certificate and my secondary school, university. Maybe hopefully some of those will speak for those who will be in this situation as well. But I am wondering, are there any exceptions as far as this policy is concerned for those who wish to apply for entry to the Netherlands? Let's say, is it that all applications are treated this way, or unless they have a reason to feel suspicious about anything, then they want to kind of investigate more deeply? Or they treat everything?
No. Formally they need some concrete evidence or concrete suspicion about the birth certificate. Yeah. But in our experience, this concrete suspicion already rises when it's a late entry. So then they say when it's a late entry, then they and you can see that in the decisions from the immigration office as well, that they say it's a late entry. Yeah. So there is real reason to believe that there has been more than one birth certificate. And then when there's more than one registration of birth, and then I don't really understand the next step in their thinking process, because then they say, well, if you've done it twice, then you will have done it the second time, not because you forgot or you're not sure or whatever. Then you've done it the second time so you can falsify the birth information of a child or of a person. So that is, well, that's a way of thinking that the Immigration Office, well, that they show. And in our opinion, there's a lot of times that they don't have real reasons for that. So, but, you know, as soon as this first decision from the Immigration Office is there, then it's much harder to repair than when you can start from the beginning. And the thing is, and there's a bit of, because if you go to our office, for instance, to ask us for assistance in the application form, or in the application procedure, we will charge you money. It's that simple, because we cannot get subsidized legal fee for the application procedure. Yeah. But you know, even with little time, a small check with the birth certificates, a small advice what you can give, that can solve a lot of problems. Absolutely. So if you have any doubt about this, or well, by all means, be well prepared, because when you have a negative decision, and especially when the children are almost 18, because it will be a reason for the Immigration Office to look extra carefully at everything. But then if you miss the chance, if things go wrong with that procedure, then the child has turned 18, and then there's no second chance.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we've heard it all. Obviously, there's much more to get into with this matter. If you need more information, please feel free to get in touch with us. We'll put you through to Miss Lawyer Joyce Van Koosveld to help you further. Obviously, they have a way of helping you to make sure to avoid some of these pitfalls so that you don't get stuck. Well, on this note, we'd like to thank you very much for your attention and for spending this time with us. And next week, by God's grace, we will be back and with some still more interesting items. And we'd like to wish you a very, very good week. And we say, God bless you. Miss Joyce, thanks for being on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.